It's of primary importance that in relationship to spirituality that we have an absolute love of truth. That's what's, in one sense, that's all that's necessary. A real love of truth. Truth meaning reality, meaning what is. What really, really is, as opposed to what we imagine to be, or may be, or our ideas about what is. But it's so important to have a real love of truth, of what really, really is. Because if we don't, we can almost be assured that we're going to end up in some delusion. How could you not end up in delusion if you don't actually value the truth? You may end up in the truth by some sort of accident. You know, sometimes you can do everything wrong in life and everything goes well anyway, in some sense. Actually, probably most of our lives are somewhat an example of that. Not with you, I'm talking to the wrong crowd. I'm sure you've done almost everything just right in life, right? And everything worked out just so well because of how wonderful and perfect we all were. So already this miracle of things kind of work out in spite of ourselves is probably somewhat comforting in some ways. But it is so important to have this love of truth, of what's real, of what is really real. Because this kind of interest, this kind of love is something that is already, it starts out being transcendent of self. Love of what's real is already something that's transcendent. It's transcendent of one's own personal wants and personal desires and personal things we insist upon and judgments and all of that. The real desire and love of what's truth is in many ways already, it's a transcendent desire. It's a transcendent orientation because it's not fundamentally self-centered. Of course, I think if most people were honest, they would say, well, part of my interest is because I think it's going to help things work out much better for me. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine to be interested in truth in part because you don't want to suffer or you don't want to cause suffering, or you don't want to be in conflict, or all of that is totally understandable, and probably any honest person will have that as part of their concern. But if all of our concern is only with ourself, then it's going to make everything really difficult. If all we want is to feel better, which we all want to feel, I don't know if we all want to feel better, but we all want to feel good. Given the choice, you'd rather feel good than feel rotten. Most people. Not everybody. Some people feel good by feeling rotten. That's kind of weird. But at least some people feel like they are who they are when they feel rotten. But nonetheless. But it's this real love of truth which has the capacity to always draw us out of our own preconceived viewpoints, our own fixations, right? Because enlightenment could easily be defined, and probably in some ways most accurately defined, is the realization of reality. Realization of what is. So you are seeing, knowing what is instead of what isn't. Right? Enlightened, well, there's not an enlightened being, but nonetheless, an enlightened being will simply see and know and perceive what is. Unenlightenment means nothing more than seeing, knowing, and perceiving what isn't. Or, as a lot of spiritual teachers have called it, ignorance, misunderstanding, right? About the nature of oneself, about the nature of existence, about the nature of anything. That's basically what enlightenment is. When we come into the realization of what is, we're in the realization of reality, therefore at that instant, we're not divided. There's nothing, that moment, there's nothing in you that's in opposition to what's real and true. And when you're not in opposition to what's real and true, how does it feel? It feels really, really good, right? Everybody in this room knows that. Some of you may not know what it's like to see things as they completely and absolutely really are, but everybody knows that feeling temporarily of not being in opposition to anything feels good.